What's up, everybody? Welcome into the latest The Blitz Network Radio. With you here is your host and TBN editor-in-chief, Robert Zaglinski. I'm here with my man, Kari Thompson, the lead analyst for the Blitz Network. And the Combine has started this week. Kari, guys are going to be testing over the weekend, and they're gonna be doing things like the 40-yard shuttle. They're gonna be doing things like or the 40-yard dash and the three cone. How fast can you run the 40? Can you run it faster than NFL Network's Rich Eisen?
Yes, that I know without a doubt. As a matter of fact, the last time I ran it, I did it in four. It was 4.9. 4.9. I can still break a 5.
You can look, a 5 is pretty good. Like the fact that like only the most freakish of athletes that are 280 pounds and like Khalil Mack and stuff can run that much at a high mass. Like for a more average human, like sub 5 is pretty good. Like or around 5 is pretty good. Like I'm pretty proud of you. That's pretty that's athletic. You're what, 28 years old?
Yeah,
You're,
yeah.
you're
I mean, I used to run track, so I used to be able to get the legs moving a little bit.
okay, yeah. But I'm still saying for like a 20, so for like a late 20s journalist, that's still good, man. Like that's not your main focus anymore. You're not necessarily a track runner anymore, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's pretty good. I'd like to say that I'm along those same lines, but we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. Like I am not.
Hey, I'll ask you. I'll ask you off the record. I won't tell anybody. I promise.
Let's just say I wouldn't be breaking any records. Yes. uh,
But would you be faster than Rich Eisen? I would probably say yes.
well, he runs it in the. Oh yeah, he runs it in his suit. I would absolutely be faster than Rich Eisen. Anyway, I
Or
digress.
not in a suit.
Or not in a suit. Yeah. I digress, Kari. You can follow my man here on Twitter at KD Thompson 5. You can follow me on Twitter at Robert Zaglinski and follow us on our website and support us at the Blitznet. And let's jump right into it. We'll get back to the combine a little bit later. The
Yes,
big
sir.
story of this week, Kari, and because it's the offseason, it's this normally would just be a blip. Otherwise, there'd be something that would happen on the weekend. But it's the big story of for an offseason. This is a big story. The Bears restructured Kyle Long's contract. The contract he signed in 2016, making him one of the highest paid guards in football. Where ever since his career has obviously been ravaged by injuries. He hasn't played a full season in 3 years. But they restructured him, and that basically guarantees that he will be a Bear for 2019 if he can stay healthy. Maybe he still has 3 years left in that deal. Maybe it continues going on. He is on the wrong side of 30, but you never know what could happen. And the
Yes.
Bears essentially created about 2.9 million in salary cap space while also getting that value cap compromise of a guy they didn't really have a replacement for, who is also, the cliche leader, locker room guy that's been through all the bullshit and adversity and all that. Kari, your first thoughts and reaction to guaranteeing the return of Long and bringing back that kind of continuity.
Good for one thing. Good for Kyle Long, because I've always been a fan of his. You can come off if you follow him on social media as a little bit of a weirdo from time to time, and every once in a while, he'll be doing some hot-headed thing on the football field, and you're kind of like, dude, chill out. But I have pretty much always liked Kyle Long as a Bear. And I think that this move, I actually wrote about it earlier today. It's a good move for the Bears in terms of their potential Super Bowl aspirations, I would think, in a number of ways. As you mentioned, right, they don't really have a replacement for him. So obviously, then if you decide to cut Kyle Long, then you have to either draft a new guard, you got to sign one in for agency who is most likely not going to be as good, or you're going to have to bring a young kid along and hope that he at least develops competently, or you're sticking somebody like Eric Kush in that spot, which is the Bears have already gone through that, and they know that he's replacement level at best, like things like that. So Kyle Long is not necessarily the player that he was when he made three straight Pro Bowls and was second team All Pro back in 2014. But as we saw when he came back from injury, he still can move a little bit, and he's still plenty strong. You know, he might not have that crazy brute strength because of the shoulder surgeries and some of the issues he's had, but he's still, in my mind, more than a replacement level player at guard. I think a pretty good one. And when you look at, what that means for bringing back, at least for now, all five starters on the offensive line, think about what that means in a broad sense for Mitchell Trubisky. He knows all of these guys. He knows how they play. Matt Nagy knows how they play. And so you also schematically don't have to necessarily change a whole lot because you know what these guys can do and what they can't do. You're not going to necessarily put them in situations where they, just can't execute a play, or you're trying to figure out what somebody can and can't do, except for maybe James Daniels because he's still young. And so you have that added benefit of not having to change your game. And being able to rely on a veteran like Kyle Long to just, do his job. But also, I was thinking about this earlier as well, the athleticism that you have at guard. Even though Kyle Long might not necessarily be what he was when he came in the league, you could do a lot worse athletically than your two guards being James Daniels and Kyle Long. That's pretty good.
All salient points. Read Kari's piece, as he mentioned, a Loop Sports, a little more in-depth analysis there, as well as obviously listening to us here. I also thought of this, man, like, it's interesting to me that Long was so eager to come back to the Bears. I know he's been here for 6 years. I know he's often portrayed himself and is legitimately seen as a leader in that locker room, but that there was such an eagerness on both sides' part to come to this compromise, to the Bears wanting to keep Long in, but have a lesser cap hit for him, considering maybe they might not be able to fully trust his availability yet. And Absolutely. Long, being a 30-year-old, he hasn't played in 3 seasons, sure, but if he hit the open market, I'd imagine a good team would take a chance on him, or a solid team or an up-and-coming team would take a chance on him. So to me, that speaks volumes about where the Bears stand as an organization and what guys like Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace in particular have established. Like, the Bears are a premier organization again. They're a premier franchise. Guys want to stay here. Guys want to come here.
After all the years that we spent decrying what the Bears were, especially from that 2014 on, and then to see what they just turned into last year. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The Bears are a destination franchise. Wow.
Yeah, and it's maybe it might be premature to say after one season, but they have enough of a nucleus in place to where this could last. Like, guys like Long, like I just mentioned at the top of the show, could play out that deal. This is the first off season in 3 years that he enters fully healthy, that he doesn't have any surgeries, that he's can work on fully strengthening his core and upper body to make sure he plays a good majority of the games next year and actually is a fully reliable starter. You're not only bringing back all 5 offensive line starters, you're bringing back the entire offense. So obviously that's a fantastic for Trubisky and the part to be able to work with all his playmakers and his frontline wall. It like the culture itself is, to me, so unique in comparison to most of the rest of the NFL. I'm not going to pretend to speak for, all 32 locker rooms, but I get the sense that what the Bears have, and that they actually like each other, and that they're friends, and we see so often on these social media posts and how they interact with one another in public, like where they're actually hanging out actively and taking interest in each other's lives and are ribbling each other. Like, it's such a unique atmosphere that they've created, and it's almost jarring to me. It's almost jarring to me that this, like, I know people were like, oh, we're all surprised that the Bears won the NFC North and won 12 games this past season, but this is the more meaningful, lasting impact of the culture they've established is the more meaningful, lasting impact, and it's just exemplified with a compromise like Long has with the Bears.
And you know what? It's really an unbelievable point. And I've been thinking about the exact same thing. So I like to look at things from, kind of the X's and O's standpoint and try not to get too caught up in buzzwords like culture and locker room and kind of like all the unquantifiable things that I think people sometimes just try to attribute to make themselves feel closer to the action. It's like so and so doesn't have heart, so and so wanted it more, whatever. But at the same time, you can't discount those things because that's a real thing in sports, especially in team sports, and just generally like. You do your job better, at least, in my experience, and definitely, what it looks like for elite teams. You do your job better when you like doing it. And when you are, as they say, playing for the guy next to you, or, you trust the guys that you're playing with. And I think that somebody like Kyle Long, as much as, it does seem like a cliche, he is one of those consummate guys. And so having a guy like him and even somebody who I made reference to earlier in the day on the defensive side of the ball, somebody like Akeem Hicks, like those two guys to me in a lot of ways exemplify the kind of mentality that I think the Bears want to have, that aggressive, hit you in the mouth sort of style where they're just going to get after you all game. They're going to get nasty. They want to intimidate you and punish you. And at the height of their game last year, I think that's very much what the Bears were. And I think that, that is what they want to carry into next year. But you talk about Kyle Long and his willingness to come back and Ryan Pace's willingness to work with him to keep him around. And it absolutely tells me that they believe they're going to contend for a Super Bowl next year. We've talked about it a couple of different times, so it bears to keep reminding people that this team is more or less coming back intact. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of roster turnover. There always is in the NFL. You can't avoid that. But this team more or less is going to be the same as it was same as it is next year as it was last year, and they're going to run this back because they believe that team. With another year of seasoning, particularly with the youth movement that they've got and some of these younger players, starting with Mitchell Trubisky stepping up, that they are going to have a championship window that's going to stay open for a few years. At the same time, if you're going to have that window and you're going to compete on a yearly basis, you need that kind of leadership in your locker room, and particularly if that leadership plays well, as we hope that Kyle Long will. And I think that, Ryan Pace certainly believes that the way that he has been approaching this offseason. And clearly, Kyle Long believes that this team is going to compete for a Super Bowl. And so he was willing to say, hey, he took a pretty big pay cut. And he also, another thing that comes across here is, he has 3 years left on the deal. But, he could be gone, in 2021, depending on whether they let him hit the market, or he could resign. We don't know. That's still quite a bit in the future, but clearly he was willing to take this chance on staying with this particular team because he believes in its direction, and I think that that's something that should encourage Bears fans.
The thing too is like that people need to understand, and that if they expect a drop off or the Bears, some of the Bears' performance metrics like turnovers and injuries kind of hitting the regression to the mean next year. Like the Bears themselves, as most who have experienced the kind of success they did last year, they're not interested in being a one and done team. They're not interested in being the 2017 Jaguars or the 2017 Vikings. Everything about how they've conducted themselves is of the utmost confidence. It's of a team that wants to polish off the edges, but not in a way of we have only one major need, we only have one big thing to do. No, they want to polish off the edges and really strengthen their core. They want to go and they want to take some yoga classes to really get flexible and to really power up that core. Like
do some plyos,
get explosive and work on themselves. Like they don't want 12-4 and then mediocrity 8-8, 7-9 next year just because their basic talent core is so level. They're going for it. That's an excellent point on your part. And like, and as you watch, and as everyone watches this entire offseason unfold, that's how they're going to attack this. They might not necessarily get the Allen Robinson or the Khalil Mack this year because, you know, the salary cap exists as much as it's still a myth to me. But they're going to make some prudent, good moves in my mind that really follow that aim. And Long is just the first start of it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that as you know, Bears fans are almost going to have to adjust to this, because we've been in this situation where, you know, for such a long time, you know, fans have, where the team is not actually a legitimate competitor for a Super Bowl. And so there is always this idea of, man, we really need, you know, the next big piece. You know, we need the big splash. Like, why aren't we getting, you know, a star to come in here and really make all the difference? You mentioned, right, they're not getting the Allen Robinsons or the Khalil Mack this year. And I'm not sure that, you know, that player is necessarily out there right now anyway, but that's the crazy thing. They already got those guys. Right?
Yeah.
They went and did that last year. It paid off majorly. And so now they're in the situation where, as you mentioned, it's more about, you know, polishing off the edges, addressing the weaknesses you do have, like kicker, which I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit later. But, you know, again, now they're in the situation where it's about the little things now. It's not about the big things. It's not about addressing these significant talent gaps that you have versus the rest of the league. They've closed the gap now. They are now, you know, on paper and hopefully, you know, in the future, these projections, they're going to be one of the more talented teams in the league if everything keeps progressing the way that it's progressing. And they obviously have one of the singular stars in the NFL in Khalil Mack. And so, yeah, this is absolutely a situation in which, you know, they believe that not only are they going to, you know, have a shot at winning next year, but with this young core in particular, starting with the quarterback. And again, right, you know, what I saw last year, obviously there's room for Mitchell Trubisky to grow. There's no denying that, but I feel like I can't overstate enough how important it was that they addressed the quarterback position when they did, and that they built around Mitchell Trubisky the way that they have. And, you know, this addition, bringing Kyle Long back is absolutely a part of that, as you mentioned. But now you have a situation where you're giving Mitchell Trubisky continuity heading into a critical third year. And he showed last year, at least to me, that he's the kind of quarterback that can, in fact, win you a playoff game. And so now, again, you don't have to worry about doing that. All the time that we spent thinking about who was going to be the quarterback of the future when it seemed that Jay Cutler wasn't going to be the guy, or before Jay Cutler was there.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. And now all of a sudden, like, is anybody asking that question right now? I mean, I'm sure that there are, right? But in terms of sane people, is anybody asking that question?
I don't think so, man. This entire conversation like turned into Kyle Long, and now you're giving me like emotional chills. Like this is like the cusp of something special. So naturally,
and Kyle Long is a piece of it, you know. But like that is the whole point, right? In when I was thinking about it earlier, is Kyle Long is, you know, it seems like a small matter, and, you know, maybe in the grand scheme of things it may turn out to be that way, but it's one little extra thing that in my mind gets them closer to a Super Bowl.
So let's bring this down a notch from the Super Bowl Bears. Kyrie, do you have a handkerchief handy? Do you have like one that like you use for like when you're sick or probably a better term, sad?
Oh, So you want me to find a Robbie Gould handkerchief right now?
Yeah.
Is
So do you
that
have a
what you're
Robbie
saying?
Gould handkerchief handy?
You know what? Unfortunately, I don't. Let me go find one. Don't start this without me.
I'm going to start because I want to spare your feelings. So,
Okay, I got one. Okay, we're
oh,
good.
you got one. Good. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I'm
are you
ready.
ready? So,
Hit me with it.
the
It's
official
okay.
the official news hit on Tuesday that Robbie Gould received a non-exclusive franchise tag from the 49ers. Are you okay? Are you okay?
Thank
Can I continue?
Honestly, thank God that whole thing is over. I've got to
Hey,
be honest with you.
any all right, let me get your thoughts in a second. So Gold got the non-exclusive franchise tag from the 49ers, a 36-year-old who obviously the Bears released a few years ago and has since rounded back into top form and one of the best kickers in football. The Bears can technically still bring him back. I know that's many of Bears fans' dreams that they wanted Robbie Gould to be the answer. They wanted him to be the guy that replaced Cody Parkey after the double doink and after a lot of the hype was building up over the past few weeks that Gould wanted to come back. Technically, so they can still make that move. The only issue is if you make an offer for Gould, and let's say it's 5 or 6 million, whatever, that's a hefty investment on kicker alone already, in addition to the dead money you're going to have from Cody Parkey's contract that they're just going to eventually end up eating with the June 1st designation. If the 49ers don't match it, you're paying Gould $6 million and you're surrendering 2 first-round picks. For a team that doesn't have 2 first-round picks in 2019 and 2020, so that means you'd be giving up first-round picks in 2021 and 2022. So to get Gould, you would essentially have and give him such an offer that San Francisco wouldn't match. You'd have to accept the fact that you're not going to have first-round picks until well into the next decade. Gould's not coming
I
back. In other words, he's not coming back. Kyrie, your thoughts on the heartbroken dream of many around Chicago?
First of all, again, as I mentioned before, thank God that whole saga is over. I don't need Robbie Gould back in Chicago. I really don't. Obviously, it was a little bit, kind of nostalgic, in a sense when he did get let go. He wasn't. I mean, it wasn't necessarily that he was putridly awful, but it did seem like he might be on the decline, and that was a significant investment they had in him at the time, and good for him for turning it around. At the same time, you don't need Robbie Gould. There are other kickers out there that can, do the job competently enough, and I don't know that necessarily Robbie Gould at this point in his career. I mean, maybe I'm overthinking this because kickers, can have a little bit more longevity than, your average player. But I don't know if Robbie Gould is necessarily the kind of guy that this team is looking for. Ryan Pace said at the combine today when asked about the kicker situation that, he wants a guy who can knife through the Soldier Field wind. Robbie Gould is not necessarily a guy who can knife through the Soldier Field wind. He's the kind of guy who often, just understood the wind and how to deal with it, which is, has merit on its own. But I just don't see a reason not to look at some young competition here, whether you're talking about if you really wanted to go with the 7th round pick. I've got to be honest, I don't know that the Bears will spend a draft pick on a kicker, and I'm not sure that they should, given the fact that especially this year they don't have they don't have a 1st or 2nd round pick. So I would think that you're probably looking at an undrafted free agent. And I mean, Robbie Gould was an undrafted free agent. It's not like you can't find a competent kicker, outside of drafting them. It's not necessarily that he has to be the greatest kicker alive or anything. I just think that you can find somebody that is plenty competent enough to do the job and also who isn't Cody Parkey. And I feel like that is the unfortunate thing, right? Is that, the Bears, for much of this time when they weren't competitive, and I don't know that, they were perhaps prepared to be in the situation they were in and, be relying on Cody Parkey of all people in the NFC Championship game when they were thinking about, going into the season. but they were kind of just, I feel like, going through the motions in signing kickers for quite a while. And now I really do think that they're prepared to find somebody who can actually do the job, as opposed to, just some plug and play Mike Nugent type character.
Right.
So I think that, the it's time to move forward and not look back. And I am 0% okay with sacrificing any form of draft pick for Robbie Gould. Don't need that.
Oh my God. I was going to make a point and then, oh my God, I got a cough.
Don't die on air, my friend. That'll be really awkward.
I've got this death cough because I'm emotional about Robbie Gould.
Robbie Gould handkerchief, bro.
Yeah. Oh my God, I misplaced it. Damn it.
I'm carrying it around with me right now. Come on, man.
Strapping it to your belt, strapping it like, oh, I'm ready at a moment's notice. No,
I got it over my shoulder, like a basketball player dejected on the bench. Got the towel over my neck.
Here's my thing with Gould, Kyrie, and the first point I say absolutely earnestly, as I have said for a while, and I said long before the Cody Parkey's double doink, kicking should be banned. That's a point for a different podcast and a different conversation, but kicking and all its relevant forms should be banned. If the Bears made an earnest effort to the competition committee to make that motion and make football better, they wouldn't have to worry about finding a kicker. But I digress. That's an entirely different and lengthy conversation about changing about making football an ironic name for this sport. Second,
that would be great.
It would be great. It would absolutely be great. I mean, you'd have 4 downs of offense. Like the game itself would change for the better. I don't know how anyone.
Just make it flag football, except with pads.
With tackling
and concussions.
First of all, Matt Nagy would get to use more 2-point plays.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yes.
Matt Nagy would be able to be as creative as possible. Like the entire offensive and defensive strategies would change. Instead of playing 59 minutes and 50 seconds and putting 6 to 7 months of work for a championship season on a skinny 190-pound guy to randomly kick it through a goalpost. How does that make any sense? To do a completely different play out of context, how does that make any sense that we have done this for decades upon decades? I, for one, await the coming evolution. But anyway, with Gould, I generally agree with your point where, yeah, like I'm happy the saga's over. I'm happy the hype's kind of over. Like then the Bears can focus their efforts elsewhere. But I also still find it difficult to rationalize missing out on, while Gould isn't, as maybe strong-legged as he was early on in his career, like he's still one of the best kickers in football. And to me, that is a very disconcerting thing that the Bears are probably going to bring in a young guy, bring in an unproven guy to really take them to the mountaintop. I know that's the profile of many kickers that started out that way, and they either have it or they don't. But to me, this team needs a guy that's been there and done that right away. This team, with the window they have, which to me is the next 2 to 3 years or before the collective bargaining agreement expires, they need a guy that, they can count on, that they're ready to win now. There's not any long-term thing here. There's not, they can't afford to have any growing pains. They need a guy they can count on to not miss 11 kicks over the course of an entire regular season and then early postseason exit. Because if this happens again, let's say, they win, they go 13-3 next year. They make a sizable improvement. They are the number 1 seed in the NFC, and they get to the NFC Championship game, and they have that kind of kicker, and he misses. No one's going to remember any of the previous accomplishments because they still couldn't get it right. Because they still couldn't get it right on his leg. To me, I find it difficult to rationalize missing out on Gould in that sense. I have faith that Pace can do it. I agree with your point that, now maybe they're going to take it a little bit more seriously, but we don't have any evidence that he's good at it. That's more of a projection than something that's sensible, than something that's based in any logic evidence we have. You know what I mean? Like Pace has struck out on every kicker he's signed and added, so that's all I can go off of. And if we're gonna go off of the kickers he's added, like Connor Barth and Mike Nugent, like you mentioned, this team's in trouble. But it's we'll see how it develops. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a totally valid point, and I think that that is something worth thinking about, right? Obviously, there has been many a kicker who came in as a rookie and was unfazed by the big moment, and made the big kicks in those kinds of situations without batting an eye. And yet there have been plenty of rookies who have wet the bed, and so I think that is valid in that with somebody like Robbie Gould, and I don't think it necessarily has to be Robbie Gould. Perhaps there's another veteran kicker that might cost less that you might also be able to trust. But the idea of having somebody who you can just rely on to just make the kick, and just do your job, in a situation like that when you're going 44 yards or whatever for the win to send you to the second round of the NFC playoffs. It's like just to have somebody that can do that, like that's a big deal. And I would probably agree with you at this particular time, right? I would rather have, perhaps a veteran kicker to make that kick than perhaps a rookie. At the same time, I guess we don't necessarily know what kids they may or may not bring in, and who knows, they might find somebody who has ice in their veins and becomes an insanely accurate kicker, just like Robbie Gould did circa 2005. So in the end, that is going to be the one of the questions of the hour. I feel like after everything that happened last year, all the acquisitions, everything that was projected for this team and the way that it was composed, and Ryan Pace, talking about being so happy with the depth of this team. And I think that's a very salient point, is there isn't necessarily a place on this team right now that you are just saying, oh my God, they're horrible at this spot. At the same time, all that, and then the kicker ended up being your Achilles heel. That's really unfortunate. And so I hope, that gets addressed this year. I am still okay with the fact that Robbie Gould wasn't the guy, but I do see the logic in, being a little bit upset about that.
The one thing I don't want the Bears to become is the Vikings, where they build this juggernaut roster and then
you get Blair Walsh.
And then you get Blair Walsh, or what is it? Is it Morton Anderson? Was that the guy that missed the 98 NFC Championship game kick? Do you know?
It was Gary Anderson.
Gary Anderson. Okay, so or another Gary Anderson.
Yeah,
I don't want that.
Was a former Falcons kicker, I believe. But yeah, no, definitely, yeah. Get Gary Anderson
or Scott Norwood. So going outside of the Vikings, getting like being a massive favorite in the Super Bowl and then losing on that, like that's the one thing I don't want. So I mean, obviously we're holding out hope on that, because I would never be able to live it down. I don't know how anybody that's a Bills or Vikings fan lives it down. Like the double doink itself is pretty disharming, and we're fortunate that it came early in the playoffs instead of the NFC Championship game or Super Bowl. So I personally,
that was the only thing that allowed me to get over that in any kind of time was the fact that it happened during the first round of the playoffs, because I think that if it had happened in the NFC Championship, I wouldn't have been able to speak for weeks.
Yeah, anyone that's like upset that that the Bears missed out on a run, sure, that's probably possible, seeing how that the Rams got there, but that's projection. You know what I mean? Like you're projecting that the Bears would have romped their way through the NFC, as opposed to, oh, hey, they got to the final step and then they actually got to the final step and then failed. So yeah, I absolutely with you there. As far as a guy I like, and as far as I know the Bears probably aren't going to go this route. They're probably going to bring in the competition. That's something that Pace talked about. We'll get to in just a second at the Combine. Like, I would love Matt Bryant, 43-year-old Matt Bryant that got released by the Falcons. Very experienced kicker. Probably one of the, I think I saw a metric the other week, one of the most valuable kickers in football last year for a position that gets what? Less than 20 plays a game, if that.
Yeah.
So, that's the kind of guy I'm thinking of them adding. That's the kind of guy that still has a big leg, that can nail 50-yarders, that maybe he hasn't kicked in the most adverse environments, given the Georgia Dome there in Atlanta, but I feel like his experience and his savviness and him understanding the pressure would be perfect for a team like this. Realistically, he should probably have a Super Bowl reign and was an excellent kicker with an excellent offense 2 years ago. So that could happen with the Bears. That's my favorite for the guy, but
that's mine as well. And with Bryant, right? And I mean the point is obviously one to monitor the fact that he spent so much time with Atlanta, and they're a dome team at the same time, right? He's a professional, and in all his time playing in the NFL, he has kicked outside. He's kicked outdoors before, so he knows how to prepare for that kind of thing, and at least to be able to learn and adjust, I think. And I think that him just kind of being a professional who's been there and done that is something that that is valuable. And it's been valuable for him throughout his career. It was valuable during that playoff run, in the playoff runs that he's had with the Atlanta Falcons. He's a good player. And so I think that that would be a good fail safe for me. Is if they brought in Matt Bryant for a bridge year perhaps, and then maybe saw how he was handling it, because he is 43 years old, and see how he handles it, and then maybe see if they can bring somebody else along another time. So as far as veteran kickers go, I do like that option.
How many 50-yard kicks do you think Matt Bryant has made in the last 3 seasons? So that's the same time frame since the Bears released Robbie Gould. How many 50-yard kicks do you think he's made in the last 3 seasons, Kari?
Matt Bryant.
It's not like an egregious 30 numbers. Think of a kicker. Yeah, no. So a collective last 3 seasons.
15.
18. That,
all right, not bad.
That's not bad. Yeah, 18 50-yarders in 3 years. Not bad at all. The Bears, as a team, given their recent 50-yard issues, with, let's say, okay, so Connor Barthright is a name. Cody Parkey is the other name. Cody Parkey only made 1 last year. Let's get that straight. The Bears as a team have made 3.
Yes.
3. That just puts things in perspective. That just puts things in perspective, Let's keep that in mind of how big of an upgrade a guy like that is. I don't care that he's 43. Kickers can play until they're 100, okay? As long as they can keep kicking that through the upright, they can play until they're 100. It's just something to keep in mind.
Your legs don't fall off, because I feel like that's one thing that does unfortunately happen with some of the older kickers that we run across sometimes in this league. Is they've got it going like clockwork, but they're old, and they strain a muscle, and then they're out, and they don't recover quite as well. So I guess that's always like a thing that's in the back of my mind when I think of somebody like a Matt Bryant. At the same time, it's like, as long as he's healthy, I mean, and just doing his job. Like, again, right? I thought about this a lot in the aftermath of the Cody Parkey thing. In missing the kick and the other kicks that he missed. Kicking is not, it's not as easy as we make it sound. There are a lot of variables to consider, as opposed to just walking up and striking the ball with your foot. At the same time, I think that there's just something to be said for a guy who you could just rely on to just do your job. Don't overthink it. Have the number of repetitions to say, okay, when I kick it like this, it's going to slice or it's going to hook, and the wind's going to catch it and push it towards the right goalpost. And, to just know that when the ball gets put down, and just let it fly, as opposed to, I feel like you could see Cody Parkey overthinking it on the field. You just knew when he was on tilt.
Yeah, and good kickers don't have that. Good kickers, like, they operate as if, hey, I'm a baller. I'm about to knock this 60-yarder bad boy right through the goalpost. You can't stop me. You can call 3 straight timeouts, try to ice me, and they're still going to do it. Like it's all a mentality. Like it's more of a. I feel like kickers are the most frail confidence-wise, in literally comparison to every other position. So that's actually an excellent point. I was going to ask because you mentioned the leg falling off. Did you watch The Simpsons a lot when you were younger?
I mean, yes.
Okay, so remember the episode? I think I'm not sure what it was, but it's where Homer is on the football team. I think he's playing for the Broncos, or they're playing some kind of pro football, and
Okay,
there's
I don't
the.
remember this. Just for perspective, I don't remember this one. But go on.
I need to finish the reference still because I went too far in.
Go for it.
I
No,
went
no,
too far
I
in.
want to know.
Okay, so it's like the game is tied or something. And Homer accidentally runs over they have this really good foreign kicker that's basically like their MVP that can make it from anywhere in the field. And Homer accidentally runs him over. Homer accidentally runs him over to where
Of
his
course.
leg, well, yeah, typical Homer stuff, right? He gets run over, and the leg is basically like almost amputable. Is that a word? Like amputable? Is that
Amputated?
Amputated. Like it's being held together by the cast itself. He probably really shouldn't be kicking, but they're in a position. I might be completely misplacing this reference, but anyone that's listening that loves The Simpsons, I think most people do, might get this. But anyway, they get him on the field for the game-winning kick, and he kicks the ball, and it's clearly going short. And it's about to fall short of the goalpost, and it's like one of those dramatic, like slow camera pauses, right? Like, oh,
Yep.
like everyone's watching the field, and then right as it's about to like fall short of the goalpost, the leg fell off in air, like went through as the foreign kicker kicked the ball and knocks it in. Literally the opposite of the double doink, the perfect bounce, and it's just like I got that. I'm sorry. I got that vision when you said leg falling off, and I'm like, I feel like that would be the most dramatic way for the Bears to like answer their
I'm now
kicking
about
woes.
to watch this, by the way.
You're not going to?
No, I said now I have to watch this. This is
I'm
going
not
to
sure
happen.
what episode it is. I'm not sure if you could.
Hey,
like,
this is what YouTube is for, man. Oh no, I got this. They got the slow motion. This guy, yep, his leg is like all bent wrong in a cast.
but you found it?
Yeah. No, I'm watching this right now.
Yeah.
Oh
See,
my
you know what I
God.
mean?
This is excellent. Oh,
What episode
Jesus.
is that? What episode is that? What's it called?
I don't even know. Hold up. I got. Oh my God.
Could you imagine if like that was a thing with the Bears and answering their kicking issues, man?
Oh my goodness, that is unbelievable. But you know what? We could use some karma here, some good karma after that just disaster.
This is the Blitz Network Radio. This is Robert Zglitsky, editor-in-chief and host here with you with my main man, lead analyst Kari Thompson. You can follow Kari on Twitter at Katie Thompson5 or Katie Thompson5. You can follow me on Twitter at Robert Zglitsky and follow us on Twitter at the Blitznet. Let's get back to the combine, Kyrie. Ryan Pace speaking today with an incredible fade, I might add. Very millennial haircut for a guy in his early 40s. Did you see that? It was pretty good. Someone lined him up good. Did you see it?
I have not seen this. Okay. So,
he's got the haircut of.
Goodness. Okay, no, that's okay. One thing I gotta say, Ryan Pace has always had some good hair.
Yeah.
You got to give it to him. But no, man, he looks like he went into a black barber shop and somebody did him up right.
He's got some good lining there, right? Yeah. How jealous, and I don't want to bald shave, but how jealous do you think Matt Nagy is when he saw that today? Because that looks like a fresh cut. That looks like a fresh cut for real.
I feel like I want to know if Ryan Pace has said something to him about it, and like Matt Nagy's just like, dude, just don't even talk to me right now. Like that's probably like the first thing that like he noticed about him when they had their sit down, so Pace could try to woo Nagy, to Chicago, and he was just like, oh my God, this hair.
It's incredible. I'm already 40 and I have my hair, and you look like you're gonna go strong until you die, man. What the hell?
Seriously, man. No, and he's just like, he's unapologetic. He knows he's got the fresh look. As long as Matt Nagy keeps on rocking the beanies though, like That's all good.
The visor, not the beanie. He's got to go with the visor, dude. That's his thing. That's definitely
Oh
that.
yeah, I like the beanie though. Beanies are my style, but I guess you're right. The visor is
But
like
you're
the
not
Trubisky
bald.
arm sleeve at this point.
You're not bald though. Like you don't need to necessarily wear a beanie to cover any hair. Like you have good hair,
Yeah.
right?
So it's just kind of like, yo, showing off with the. Yeah, I guess that is the thing. Showing off with the visor, even though you're bald. That's a pretty bold look.
A little bit of a digression there, but the great faded Ryan Pace. Um, let's just go through some highlights, some things he notes. I personally don't think he said much of anything meaningful, but it was just
He never does.
he never really does. That's kind of why he's a good GM. He holds his cards close to his vest. He has a very good poker face, probably better than most general managers in the NFL. But he did clarify specifically on some notes, so there's still some information to parse through. For one, Kyrie, the first is that they weren't going to sign Kareem Hunt. I'm not sure how much they believe that. He said that Pace said that the Bears were never
I'm not.
intently serious about doing it. And I think he's only just saying that out of convenience after the Browns did it. I still feel the Bears were very serious about that. But, because trusting Pace on his public comments, like we both just said, like that's not a smart thing to do. Like, but your thoughts on that matter?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that it's terribly convenient that and I said this at the time, and we didn't necessarily get to pot about it, but I was definitely on this train when the Cleveland Browns signed Kareem Hunt. Thank goodness that the Bears were not able to do it, because I feel like whatever Ryan Pace may say, I'm sure that it was a conversation that was indeed being had with Matt Nagy's relationship with Hunt, Hunt's relationship with some people on the team, including Mitchell Trubisky. I'm sure that if the cards had landed a little bit more favorably in the Bears' favor, they might have been tempted to reach out and touch that. And so it certainly seems like a good PR move to be like, we didn't really want him. We were thinking about it. I'm just not sure how true that is. Now, and I mean, we might not be giving him enough credit. Maybe they learned from what happened with Ray McDonald, and they were just like, I guess we'll inquire about it, but we don't really want to touch this. It's entirely possible. I just think that some of the little pieces that we found out about some of their interest, and some of the reports that yes, the Bears were actually interested and inquiring about him. They were one of the teams that people were actually saying, like, yes, among the teams that are pursuing Hunt are the Bears and like the Ravens, along with the Browns. And so it's like, sometimes teams' names get put out there just because, but I'm not so sure I believe that in this case.
Another note, Anthony Miller did indeed undergo shoulder surgery. That's someone you wrote about yesterday. How concerned are you about that? He obviously had some significant issues with that in his rookie season. Those are some issues that linger way back to college. Is that a point of contention with you, Kyrie, beyond him just becoming a more polished player?
Well, I think that, and I don't know specifically what the surgery entailed. I guess I would have to look that up, see if my anatomy background could help with that a little. But I think that this was probably a necessary step for him. He had to get this surgery to stabilize it, because essentially, like, the way I understood it was his shoulder was just going to continue popping out and having issues unless he did get it fixed up. And so maybe he won't be 100% until training camp, and it might slow down, a little bit of his work in the off season. At the same time, I think that the things he needs to work on most are probably things that, he just needs to focus a little bit harder on, during training camp and beyond. So I don't know that I'm extremely concerned about it. It's not like he is not going to be around or on the field. He might just be a little bit limited, but he's still going to be around. He's already had this full year in the offense. So, he knows more or less what the team is running and what his responsibilities are. And it's just going to be up to him, once he is ready to go, full go, to execute. So I think that, and he also has, some of the raw tools already, particularly from a route running standpoint, where reps are going to help him get better, obviously. And, particularly for a young player, repetitions are so important. But that's not necessarily something that he needs to be taught or to learn, like somebody like a Javon Wims or something like that. So I would be less worried about Anthony Miller needing a little bit of time than, say, like a Javon Wims or something like that. I ultimately expect he'll be fine.
My only thing is, like, if it's such a chronic issue and this guy's already going to be 25 by the time next year, like, I think a little bit of concern is still warranted. Like, he does take contact, and he's a fiery guy, so he's not someone that's ever really going to go down easy. He's going to expose himself to the occasional big hit. Like, he has the utmost of talent, but we've seen many an NFL player, especially with the Bears, that have had their careers derailed because they couldn't stay healthy. They were very talented, but they couldn't stay healthy. And it's not a concept exclusive to the Bears. I'm not saying to absolutely panic about Miller or anything. I'm with you. Like, ultimately, I think he'll be fine. Ultimately, I think he's going to make a big leap next year. But it is something to monitor. It is something to monitor. He had the surgery, and it's certainly a point of prevalence with him. So it's just something that we have to see how it develops as it goes on, how healthy he stays over time. Other lines of note for Ryan Pace and his, I guess if you could call it a presser. I don't know if it's actually an official presser or just a gathering for Bears media that's there in Indianapolis at the scouting combine. Pace, and this is another thing where for me it's like, oh, hey, I'm not going to tell you what our plans are with anybody, but he explicitly didn't rule out bringing back both Bryce Callahan and Adrian Amos, the Bears' two remaining unrestricted free agents. And people jumped on that. Obviously, the content machine and the aggregating machine that absolutely annoys me to no end, that needs clicks, jumped on that and took his quotes and extrapolated that. And no one bothers to
question whether or not that is smart.
Actually smart, yes.
Feasible.
I think it's feasible. The Bears certainly have the space now with the restructure of Kyle Long. But I don't think it's smart, Kyrie. I think, I'd certainly bring back Bryce Callahan. But I'll let you gauge this off of me. The Bears haven't had a compensatory draft pick for 10 years. Literally 10 straight years, they have not had a compensatory draft pick. The best organizations in the NFL get free drafted assets all the time. The Patriots, the Packers, the Steelers, they get 3 or 4 compensatory picks every year, many of them in the 3rd and 4th round, which is excellent because they allow some of their non-core guys to walk away. As much as I love Callahan, who I think will still be back, as much as I'm tolerable with Amos and his skill set, they're not core guys. So bringing both back it's not smart. It's not smart. Why bring back a guy, pay him $10 million, a guy like, let's say Amos, the Bears give him $10 million, $8, $9 million, something like Eric Reed with the Panthers, just as a baseline, his contract. Why bring him back, a guy who has a limited skill set as past set, and kind of constrict yourself to that instead of what would likely become a 3rd round pick in accordance with the snap percentage he had in 2018 for next year? Because if you did that, then you have 2 2nd rounders and 2 3rd rounders. An excellent amount of draft picks for the 2020 draft, an excellent haul to keep filling your cupboard,
I mean, especially from the standpoint that, again, the Chicago Bears do not have a big draft class this year. So you kind of need to be able to stockpile some talent in the draft however you can get it. And this is something, if I can just kind of jump right in. We've had this discussion before, but, for people who may not have heard this, I don't hate Adrian Amos. I just don't think he's necessary for this team. I don't think that it is completely urgent to keep him around. He had another good season this year. Took a small leap, I would say, in pass coverage. But again, the fact remains that Adrian Amos doesn't like the less that you have to rely on Adrian Amos in pass coverage, the better. And the Bears lean on Eddie Jackson to take care of most of those responsibilities because he's better at it. And so it allows somebody like Amos to play, in a way that's more natural to his skill set. So I don't see a guy like that as being a must keep. You can be okay with if you're playing Eddie Jackson and Deion Bush, you could be okay with that. Deion Bush is, I think, maybe, more or less as athletic as Amos is, and perhaps has more range and might be able to play the ball a little bit better than Amos does / can. Sometimes Bush arrives at the ball a little bit late. Sometimes he, makes a boneheaded play or two, but, he's shown a knack at times for separating the player from the ball. And I feel like you never really see Adrian Amos get there in time to do that kind of thing because his instinct is not one of a playmaker. He's a tackler, or he can make an interception generally if you just throw the ball in his general direction and all he has to do is stand there and catch it, or catch it off of a bounce. I feel like people overestimate what he is as a player. Bryce Callahan, if he is able to stay relatively healthy, which is obviously the big if when it comes to him, right? A healthy Bryce Callahan is easily, like not even really close, easily more valuable than Adrian Amos in this league where good slot corners are at a premium. Like that's the thing that people don't understand, right? Or that people, I think, might be discounting. Adrian Amos, solid player, good player on a good team. When Bryce Callahan was healthy, he may actually have been the best nickel corner in football for that period of time where he was balling out this year. The best player at an absolutely key defensive position for matchup purposes. Like when he was on the field, the Bears were their best form of defense. And so I just don't understand the idea behind, and this is just kind of a general point, like the idea of bringing back Adrian Amos versus bringing back Bryce Callahan. But in terms of bringing back both, just from, I have been willing from the beginning to say, re-sign Bryce Callahan, let Adrian Amos go, and fill in that position with Deion Bush, or let him compete with a draft pick, sign a veteran that is competent enough, and then use the remainder of your money for other acquisitions that are more useful than Adrian Amos by himself would be. I don't see why, people would bend over backwards for trying to keep both of them.
I'm all for continuity, but it's at a certain point, like, you've got to make feasible moves. You got to make prudent moves. You have to make a calculated
you can
moves.
Upgrade from that.
You can, Tyrann Mathieu, that's an upgrade.
That's the thing, right? Exactly. Continuity is a good thing here. And we've talked about that in the form of Kyle Long. But the thing is, I can't foresee an easy upgrade necessarily from Kyle Long right now, given what he is as a player, what he has been when he's on the football field. I can easily see an upgrade, or at least just a replacement for Adrian Amos at a much better price tag than the one he's going to be asking, because he is going to be looking at Eric Reed money and saying, like, well, I'm an elite safety in this league, and somebody is going to try to pay him like he might be an elite safety. And I would be incensed if the Bears paid him like an elite safety.
It'll be something to monitor. Something tells me safely that both won't be back. Is Pace kind of taking the high road there as he normally does? Is just something to see. obviously we'll have more clarity on this issue as the offseason develops. I think we're only about 2 weeks away from the official start of free agency, so we're gonna have a lot more clarity on this soon, Kyrie. Let's get to the combine though, and I wanted to rant about this, and I told you in the pre-show that I wanted to rant about this.
It's always rantable.
It's always rantable. The combine itself is always rantable. I'm really incensed at kind of how seriously everybody takes it. And
I like how you borrowed my word right there. I see you.
Yeah. I've seen some sensible, really hardcore NFL types take it for what it is. The biggest thing about the combine is that it allows for streamlining of medical evaluations, which are big for drafting guys. You want to know how big of a history a guy is, of how much of a, I guess, risk he is if you're going to take him, but depending on his history, depending on whatever he has with his legs, whatever heart conditioning he has, like that's obviously things that have arisen over the years. Like that's what more than anything what the combine allows for. But everything else, like these things with perfectly good football players, with blue chip prospects, with sleepers, with guys with talent galore, like there's always this tendency to oh, hey, this guy ran for 2,000 yards as a senior is an absolute freak. You can plug him and play him as your offense. But wait, his arms measured short. Or, oh, hey, this guy was a 4-year starter for a super wall of an offensive line. He was the anchor. He's a left tackle you can count on for a decade. Oh, but you know, he didn't have the best vertical, or oh, he didn't have the best shuttle. You know, this is the constant to me, the combine in that way is the underwear Olympics. And I'm going to be a little bit pejorative about it. It's so grating. It's in the epitome of overthinking and overanalyzing the height of draft season. I like scouting. And I like finding what players do well. And I think entering with a clean slate is so important. But these kinds of things on tests, and I'd like to think that many NFL teams don't put so much stock into what happens in Indy on the field and look at more what's on tape, of course. But this tendency by many that cover itself to absolutely like obsess with it it's so grating. And we need to be better. And you know, like the combine itself is, if anything, like I said, is the medical thing. It's more of a networking opportunity than something that should be taken seriously when like how many times is a 300-pound guy, I'm rambling a little bit here, but how many times is a 300-pound guy going to run a 40-yard dash? Why does that matter? Why does that matter? You know,
that is a thing every single year is, again, finding out which drills, if any, actually matter for a given position, right? And so it's one of those deals where people try to use broad, you know, like broad extrapolations about like, oh yeah, we have them do, you know, have linemen do the 40-yard dashes and broad jumps and, you know, shuttle drills and things like that for, you know, to measure their explosiveness or agility. And okay, like something like the 3-cone drill is, you know, can be a decent sense of one's agility. At the same time, right, you know, to make broad proclamations about what a guy can do as a player, even with the on-field drills, when you don't have pads on, there is just, that automatically means that there is maybe not nothing that you can take from a given drill, but it means that its value is greatly distilled. Because yeah, okay, you might have a couple of guys pushing on each other, you know, or something like that, you know, or shuffling their feet from side to side, and you can be like, oh yeah, that guy can really move or bend his knees and whatnot. But even the guys who can't do that, you know, you mentioned, you know, somebody's like a 4-year starter or a plug and play guy, but okay, maybe they didn't test well, maybe they didn't run the 40 quite as fast as you wanted to see, or something like that. I feel like there's a tendency to discount the fact that there are other ways to get things done in football than being, you know, preternaturally athletic. You know, you can function in the NFL, you know, by being, you know, just technically sound. Maybe you won't necessarily be, you know, one of the greatest players of all time, you know, but if you could get the job done, you have value to an NFL team. And so, again, I think I definitely agree with you in terms of, even the on-field drills. Like, okay, for me, because I'm a former sprinter, and I love watching people run fast in straight lines because that's just kind of fun for me. I must be one of the few people that I know that would actually watch a track meet if it's on TV. A side note, but yeah, I like watching the 40-yard dash. It's fun. I like seeing who's fast and who's not fast. At the same time, it doesn't always matter that much. To just watch somebody run in a straight line. What does matter is, can you read and react to a play? And when it happens, are you fast enough to make the play that's in front of you?
Anyway, I look forward to guys like Jonah Williams, Alabama offensive tackle, dropping in the first round because his arms are half an inch short. That's something that got at me today, and I wanted to specifically point it out. I wish I had more of an appropriate response to you more eloquently putting it than me, but it's like I woke up today and I start seeing those tweets, Kyrie, and it's
maddening. It's
maddening.
I've got to tell you, right? Like, in no lie, I just have not. And this might make people kind of surprised to hear this, but I just have not been paying a whole lot of attention to stuff heading into this combine. I think that I did more in the past, but I think that I value more, and I'm sure you'll probably agree with this, just watching people play the games and looking at what they actually do when they're on the field in pads, when people are trying to knock their heads off or they're trying to knock someone else's head off, things like that, right? And again, so I will be interested to see some of these running back prospects to see, okay, who's got home run speed, if they get out in the open, because that is something that, can matter to an extent, especially from the standpoint of we have a starting running back in Jordan Howard, who, as much as we like the guy, does not have that. So having somebody who could, run, say, like a, 4.4 or 4.5, or something like that in the 40 and really just, run away from people in the end, that would be nice. At the same time, it just isn't a super high priority because I don't need to see how many, reps someone can do on the bench. I don't need to see how high somebody can jump, even though that's also kind of fun for me, every once in a while. But it's like, come find me, after the combine is over and everybody's done all their fretting and I get a chance to dig into some of these prospects and I can tell you a little bit more of what I think.
Did you just go full Dave Gettleman and screw analytics, Kari? Is that what you just did?
Oh, well, no, because I
watch the games, people. Watch the games.
Now, I should preface that by saying I've always been a proponent of analytics and advanced statistics. I love that stuff. At the same time,
I know. Yeah.
And it's funny though, because you want to get me on another rant. The extremes of that conversation, seeing somebody say something along the lines of, I have all the numbers in front of me. I see everything I need to know. I don't need to watch the games. And it's just like, that's not true. That's never true. Like, can somebody just do both of them at the same time? It's like, when they say like numbers don't lie, there are certain numbers that you don't really need to pay attention to, like bench press reps and vertical leaps. Not necessarily going to be super high on my numbers analytics, right?
We sound like such haters, but it's just something that anyone that's listening to this pod, like, just keep that in mind.
I reference it every once in a while. If a guy can just jump out of the gym, particularly if like you draft a cornerback who's kind of small, it's like, okay, well, he can at least jump, things like that, right? For fun. But for the most part, right, like, yeah, sorry to sound like haters, like you're saying, but I want to know if a guy can play or not.
Yeah, but it's something to keep in mind, everyone, because everyone is going to get like so crazy over the events of starting on Friday. I think everyone starts the running and the benching and all of it. Like, get caught up in some of it. Some of it's cool, but let's not like start moving guys up and down boards dramatically because of it. Let's keep it in an ideal context.
Just like, you know what's going to happen when Kyler Murray shows up to the NFL Combine and checks in at like 5'9" or 5'10" or whatever.
Oh my God! All of a sudden, he won't be able to throw a football anymore. He should be drafted in the 7th round.
He's not
right. That's what it'll be.
And then he's gonna go out there in the on-field drills and like throw lasers through people's chests, and then people are gonna be falling all over themselves like, I don't know what to do. And it's like, I'll tell you what to do. Put that guy on your team. That's what you should damn do.
The NFL cycle, I love the sport, man, and I love football, but it'll never cease to amaze me how endlessly frustrated I can get by some aspects of it. Whew. Let's wrap this bad boy up with we did have some other stuff, but we can save that for another pod, Kyrie. Movies you are most hyped for in 2019. And I know the obvious answer here, and I'm going to agree with you in the obvious answer that I'll get to it. But I'm going to read off some things, and like you could just pick them out after I finish. Is that all right? I'm going to give you a nice little list here of things coming out in 2019 off of the basis. So Captain Marvel coming out, I think actually next weekend.
Oh my
Avengers.
God. Yeah, no, it is close. Yeah.
Yeah. Avengers Endgame. So that's the big one that I was just talking about that we probably could agree on we're the most hyped for. The remake of Aladdin, which there's a lot of sequels here. Jesus Christ, Hollywood.
My wife is going to be all over that. Like, I'm going to, well, you know what? Okay. I don't know, because I feel like she's going to want to see it just because she loves Aladdin, the original movie. And I think that the Will Smith genie looks whack. At the same time, I feel like I could be down with at least seeing if the Will Smith genie is, remotely funny and has personality.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I think that movie's going to be trash, but that's just me.
Spider-Man Far From Home. I'm pretty hyped for Mysterio. I don't know about you. Mysterio, first feature movie, I believe. So that's going to be pretty cool for me.
Yeah, no, I could totally get down with that.
Frozen 2, depending on if you're big into that Disney stuff. I'm a big Elsa fan, man. Let it go, let it go.
It's funny. Like I started watching that movie with one of my nieces when we were out in Washington, and it's like I've heard so many good things about it, and I was into it for like the first 5-10 minutes, and then I fell asleep, and then I just didn't watch the rest of it. So I should probably redeem myself on that count, because generally I'm in with Pixar movies. Like, that's my general policy. Which
I don't think I don't think Frozen 2 is Pixar. Is it Pixar?
I thought it was.
I think it's DreamWorks under Disney. I'm not sure. At any rate, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So I was gonna say that's gonna take me into. Oh yeah, I think Frozen is. Yeah, it is Pixar. But that was going to take me into Toy Story 4, which I was kind of like, is that necessary? Do we need a Toy Story 4?
Yeah, like Andy already went off to college. The new girl has her toys. Like, why do we need to continue the story? Like, I can't get myself hyped up for that.
Are we going to need to see the cycle of oh yeah, now this girl's gonna grow up and try to ditch these toys, or is somebody gonna get killed off? Or, we gonna lose Buzz or Woody in this movie? Are
you saying Hollywood would rehash a story that's over 20 years old? Kyrie, that is blasphemous. How dare you? They have never done that. They have never done that.
I should never make such pointed accusations.
Disingenuous assertions. Disingenuous assertions.
With no evidence whatsoever.
No evidence whatsoever. I'm sure we're going to get back to this. Star Wars Episode 9 is coming out in December. I just realized that yesterday. I don't think I've been as little hyped for a friggin' Star Wars movie as I've ever been as right now, because of the fact that I just realized it's coming out in December yesterday.
Well, let me ask, did you did you like episode 8?
See, I'm not one of those like dumb traditionalist fanboys that is bothered by the discomfort of like my masculinity or anything with having like strong female characters. Like I liked the movie, like it was entertaining, but let's not gloss over the fact that the movie still has issues. Like the movie itself to me is a mess. Like I don't know for example, I don't know what the story is. Like I don't know what the main like conflict is. Like is it between Kylo and Rey? Is it like is that what it is? Because they've meandered about here for two movies that were entertaining and good enough to go to the movies for, but I don't think I've been a little disappointed by them. I've appreciated the direction they've went on, but it's just like, like just a shrug.
I think that, and this is maybe just a shot in the dark on my part, but I think that perhaps, it's almost like they're trying to adjust, not just, like, Rey's idea of, what the Force is and what, the Jedi are and kind of all that stuff, but they're also, I think that might be kind of the thing that's really happening here, in regards to that is like the idea that nothing is, kind of what we really thought it was, what we've been taught to believe, and there's all this kind of jadedness and hope is waning and that kind of thing, and the entire movie is just like a barrel full of hopelessness, and they try to, kind of sell that at the end. It's like, oh yeah, like we're still gonna find a way to do it, and you're kind of wondering to yourself, how in the world are you going to write this particular ship? I think in a way that's almost what like the Avengers left you feeling, except way better, in terms of, being a movie and being more exciting. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure, what they're going for in terms of episode 9, where in the world this is going to end up, whether or not it matters, because I feel like they were trying to make it matter somehow, that the idea of the Jedi was not what we all thought it was, or maybe it won't exist anymore after this. And I feel like we're already so used to there only being like one Jedi, or just being the Order essentially being dead anyway, that it just didn't really strike up a whole lot of feeling. We're just kind of like, yeah, dude, Jedi Order been dead.
They didn't lean in enough to it. They didn't commit to it. They like kind of said it, oh hey, the Jedi don't matter. Now that's a thing. Deal with it. Like, oh, but you didn't really like flesh that out at all. You kind of just said it and then the movie continued. Like, you know what I mean? Like if that was gonna be one of their big plot points, or one of their big themes of this trilogy, like invest yourself more in it. You know what I mean? And like pick a lane. Like that's my biggest issue.
Did it also strike you that the villains just end up looking like idiots?
Yeah.
I like Domhnall Gleeson, and I just feel like, so the guy
he's
who
a
plays
clown.
General Hux,
He's a clown.
They made him look so dumb, and
Yeah.
just so incompetent. And then you have the hilariously petulant Kylo Ren, who again, I like Adam Driver, and such, but it's like this character is, I feel like they could have done him so much better. And I felt like he started going off the rails, basically as soon as we found out, like who his dad was, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, this guy, I feel like he kind of sucks now. It's like you had that one really good shining moment there at the beginning of episode 7, and then Kylo Ren turned into a bitch, basically.
That is the most succinct. That is the most succinct way to describe him. Kylo Ren, a bitch, and I guarantee that's going to anger someone, and they're going to come ranting at us on Twitter or something. But I do not care personally. Other more movies. Dark Phoenix. Are you an X-Men guy, Kyrie?
I am an X-Men guy, and I am a Sophie Turner guy.
See, that's my thing too. Like, I feel like the Dark Phoenix is probably the best X-Men story ever. And I'm getting a bad feeling about it because I've seen a lot of underlying things on the internet, and the internet itself can always be unreliable. Obviously, it's the internet. It can be a hellhole. Um, but a lot of the pre-screenings are not coming back favorably. That it's actually a very bad movie, that they've butchered it for the second straight. Like that this new generation of X-Men is
Man.
not going to finish on a good note, and I'm not getting a good feeling about it.
That's unfortunate.
Like obviously I'm gonna wait until the official stuff comes coming out, but like there's been some pre-screens, like the movie's done, and the underlying current is it's bad again. And the fact that it's like the best X-Men storyline, at least in my personal opinion, and they're gonna ruin it for the second straight time because they try to do it in The Last Stand. The fact that they're gonna get it wrong twice in a row is so disheartening for a big nerd like me. Or maybe get it wrong twice in a row. I don't know.
I guess we shall see. Also random, but I'm just kind of scrolling through these different movies, and the Hellboy reboot is going to not have Ron Perlman.
Oh
And
my
I'm
God!
slightly
What?
sad about
Come
that.
on! You can't
Hellboy?
reboot Hellboy without. It's not Hellboy anymore. What is it like? His
Nope.
son? Like his voice itself is so
It's going to be
iconic. It's like
played
one of
by
the
David Harbour.
I mean, David Harbour's good. I like him on
Yeah,
Stranger Things. That's a Stranger Things guy, right? But like
yeah.
Ron Perlman's voice is iconic. Like like just when he speaks, like he could be saying like, "I had a bowl of Cheerios this morning," and I'm like, "Oh shit, man, that's sick. You had a bowl of Cheerios? I'm gonna watch 2 hours of this." You know what I mean? Like his voice alone like brings weight to it. That makes
Yeah,
Hellboy good.
there's nothing not entertaining about listening to Ron Perlman speak on screen. Though it's like, okay, like when they put him in a ridiculous role like the one they had him in like Pacific Rim. Okay, I could have done without that. But yeah, just generally, I'm in with Ron Perlman. So I saw that, and it's like, yeah, I like David Harbour, but I'm a little bit sad now.
So the next, a few more here. The Lion King, are another remake, totally original idea on Hollywood's part. Are you excited for Lion King? This
Excited
version.
might not be the word I would use. I'm not necessarily tripping over myself to go see it. At the same time, I'm sure I will see it because, little known fact, Lion King was that was my movie growing up.
Mm-hmm.
It was Lion King and Jurassic Park.
Lion. I mean, I feel like that was everybody. Lion King and Jurassic Park, along with Toy Story, right?
Yeah, no, I really like Toy Story, but I think that was more of my brother's movie, not so much mine. I
Mm-hmm.
could probably still quote you most of Toy Story, but I would say I was definitely more of a quote machine when it came to Lion King.
What's your favorite quote? I bet you still remember it. What's your favorite quote? Lion King quote. Give me that.
Definitely Scar. The it's like, why? Well, I will never be king, and you will never see the light of another day.
I
Didn't your mother tell you not to play with your food?
I uh I'm trying to think because I haven't seen it forever. He dies at the end of it, right? Oh, sorry, spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen The
Oh
Lion King
my
somehow.
God.
He
Jesus,
dies at the end,
Robert.
right? He gets
Yeah.
he gets killed by the hyenas,
The
right?
hyenas get his ass, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that. I just wanted to remember, and I wanted you to somehow use the voice for like Scar or Mufasa or something. Do you have a Mufasa quote? If you can do Mufasa, then
Scar. Mm-hmm. Drop him. Impeccable timing, Your Majesty.
that doesn't okay. It's very okay. I'll give you this. It's very difficult to mime James Earl Jones, but
Oh, it's
I'll
not
give you
possible.
credit. It's literally not possible. One of an even deeper voice than Ron Perlman. Last one here of all these big movies. I'm looking through it. Us also comes out soon.
Yo.
I love
Okay.
Jordan Peele, and I feel like this
So
movie isn't
we
getting the
got
proper amount of hype.
Jordan Peele, we got Winston Duke, and Lupita Nyong'o. I mean, again, I'm already in at Jordan Peele
Just
and
directing it.
Lupita.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in a Jordan Peele. I was probably just going to be in if it was Lupita Nyong'o because she's just awesome. But
I would
yes,
have been
this
in
is
at Just Winston Duke as well. Like all three
yes,
standing on their own, and they're in it together instead.
yes. I'm very in for this. I don't see how it's going to be bad. It's just one of those deals where like maybe I feel like I'm not going to like overdo it with expectation. I just know that it's going to be good.
I don't. Here's my thing with that. I don't know that I believe Jordan Peele there's no like big twist with it. I guarantee there's some kind of theme. There's some kind of like big thing. Like he said, it's just a horror movie. Like he's got his hands up. Like, oh, you caught me. It's really nothing. Like that's not Jordan Peele's style. I guarantee there's
No,
some kind of like a big underlying thought provoking theme here. And I really and I really want to know what it is because it's
Jordan
harder to
Peele
get from
is
others.
he's low key just turning into just one of these just brilliant, brilliant new directors. I mean, it's like particularly when you talk about these black directors who are really getting a chance to show their stuff these days, like the Barry Jenkins, the Ryan Cooglers, and Jordan Peele's getting a chance to get into the mainstream and just knocking it out of the park, man. Like there's just something about that.
Yeah, here's the thing I appreciate about each of them. I like that you mentioned Ryan Coogler too. Like in comparison to most of the rest of the industry, they're actually trying new things. They're not rehashing stuff. Like they've got original, like trend-setting stuff. Like they're starting their own, like they have their own flares and styles, and they're working with other things that most directors, producers, whatever, what have you, creative people in general in that realm would never attempt ever. Like they're doing legitimately new shit that's really good.
And you know what I've got to say, and I mean I don't, at the risk of overgeneralizing, I don't necessarily want to overgeneralize here, but you're talking about again three you know new black directors who are again getting their chance to do something new. When you talk about black voices getting a chance to again show their stuff and produce these ideas, there's a reason why they're fresh and new. It's because that kind of voice and that kind of perspective is typical. Like that doesn't always get told on the screen. They don't always get that chance to put those ideas out there. And so almost like by definition, it's fresh and new and exciting because it's coming from a voice you usually don't even hear. And people might look at that as being, why you have to bring the color part into it. It's like it or not, that's true facts.
Yeah, it's heartening. I use that word a lot, but it's heartening to see with them in particular. To kind of wrap this up though a little bit, Kyrie. The obvious answer of all of these, and we touched on it at the top, the most hyped movie of 2019 is Avengers Endgame, and it's like I think the only movie that could really touch it, ironically, is Us because Us is an entirely original thing, while Endgame is a sequel upon sequel upon sequel. But in terms of a hype
But
factor
it's
and
but it's
everything
a
that's
but
in
it's a
there,
sequel with Thanos,
it's
and
a
it's like
sequel with Thanos, and it's a sequel with like the finality and weight and just like a perfectly like if you think about an ensemble cast in film, like I don't think I've ever seen the last. I don't think I've ever seen Infinity War nailed it, and Endgame's like I fully anticipated it topping it, and I've never been as hyped for a movie as I am for this. Like this is gonna be the first movie I think ever in my life where I don't really want to watch any trailers that reveal it. If you reveal anything, any information, I'm avoiding it at all costs. Like even like the teaser trailers that have come out, like none of those have really revealed anything, but there's going to be some kind of launch trailer in March or something that comes out like a week
exactly.
before the movie. And I'm not watching that. I am going in with a fresh perspective because I want to enjoy just 3 hours of gratuitous superhero, weighty, largely cliche, but still amazing action.
I would almost love it if they thought of it the same way, and the next thing that they put out there was like barely like 30 seconds long and was just like, we're just going to tease you all the way in. We're not going to give you any extra shots, because as it is, I'll watch that first trailer again and again and again, and it I think I agree with you. I want to just come into this being surprised. I don't want to have to speculate whether Iron Man dies or Captain America dies. Captain America's probably going to die. But it's like I just want to see it. You know what I mean? And I think it will be very interesting to see. Again, like, oh, okay. I have to admit, there's probably going to be a poignant. Post-credit screen in the Captain Marvel, even if it's just her getting the signal or something like that. So that's going to be pretty hype too, right?
With Captain Marvel coming back or coming in? Well, with her introduction into the movie?
With her, coming into the story potentially.
Well, I get the sense that they're going to make her the next leader because, like you just said, if we think Captain America is going to die, like I get the sense they're going to hand the mantle over to her as the main leader of the Avengers. So they're definitely going to go all out with that, right? Like that's an easy assumption to make.
And I wonder too if that means because now we're nerding out a little bit here. I wonder if that means that Captain America dies / Tony Stark dies or just gives it up and is like, yo, I'm done with this. Peace out. I've given enough. I'm going to try to be married, assuming that Pepper Potts isn't dead. So I guess we'll see.
Oh, God, we're still 2 months away and it feels like a year.
It's crazy. There's just all these little loopholes and things that you just keep thinking about. The more you have a chance to consider it, it's like, oh man, how are they going to address, each person's story arc and who is or isn't actually gone.
We are such giant nerds, and I couldn't be any more proud than I already am about it. Kyrie, my friend.
That's the game, man.
Kyrie, my friend, I appreciate you hopping on with me, buddy. This is a little bit of a lengthier pod, but I think we dove in a lot of the stuff. We got into a lot of nuance about the Bears and the Combine, and a little more. I think a little bit more of a fresher pod and how we tackled things rather than just typical roster minutiae and otherwise. A little bit more.
It was fun.
Eloquent, yeah. You guys can follow Kyrie on Twitter at KDThompson5. He is our lead analyst. He just dropped a piece on Anthony Miller the other day. As I always say to him on Twitter, as I always say to him privately, he's the best film analyst around. I'm really not trying to fluff him up. He's quite good, and you should check him out there. Listening to us. Yeah. You can follow me on Twitter at Robert Zaglinski, and you can follow us on Twitter at the Blitznet. Scouting Combine underway. Movie hype for 2019 well underway before this. This has been a great pod, and as always, everybody, you stay classy.